with the flag of sackcloth, symbolizing how we all need humility. I'm Mel McGinnis with the Sophie Scholl Monologue for today. You're here, Mark Levin. He's on 3 hours a night, 6 to 9 p.m., and he'll often refer to the New York Times as the New York Slimes. Why? Goes all the way back to the 1930s. Walter Durante, not to be confused with Jimmy Durante. I'm speaking of Walter Durante, who was a lead journalist for the New York Times who went over to the Soviet Union. And he spoke glowingly of all that they did for the Russian people. Thought their plan of collectivism was a wonder in the making. And yet, there was this Ukrainian American, her name is Oksana Piazechia. I know I mispronounced that last name, but she said Durante was the personification of evil in journalism. And also said we think he was like the originator of fake news. Not only that, but Malcolm Muggeridge, the great social critic in Great Britain, said this about him. He was not only the greatest liar among the journalists in Moscow, but he was the greatest liar of any journalist that I have ever met in 50 years of journalism. See, he got a Pulitzer Prize for his award-winning reporting on the Soviet Union, speaking of Joseph Stalin and his plan in glowing terms. And the NPR came out with the headline, "The New York Times can't shake the cloud over a 90-year-old Pulitzer Prize." You know what? That cloud still hangs over the New York Times, so much so that Mark Levin calls the Times the New York Slimes. Here's an example. Very recently, the Senate cast their vote regarding the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act. This piece of legislation was given to protect babies that survived an abortion, meaning that no abortionist could merely let them linger on a table and die. That vote needed 60 votes to be passed. The Senate did not get 60 votes. All the Democrats voted against it. Every single Democrat voted against preserving the lives of babies surviving an abortion. Now, this is how the New York Times entitled their article on it. Senate Democrats block GOP efforts to criminalize some abortion providers. Can you believe it? That's the way they entitled the Abortion Survivors Protection Act. Let me read that title one more time. Senate Democrats block GOP efforts to criminalize some abortion providers. Wouldn't you state it in terms like legislation to protect babies surviving abortion fails? Wow, that would have been an eye catcher. But because of their bias at the Times, their left-wing bias that goes all the way back to Walter Durante when he basically covered for the Soviet Union, the New York Times basically said, well, they did say, Senate Democrats block GOP efforts to criminalize some abortion providers. That's a mindset we have in a large segment of American society. And it'll take people like us to call it out. The unborn child has the right to life. Oh, it was Bishop Budd who talked about the LGBT community being in great danger, fearing for their lives. But who's in greater danger for their lives? LGBTQ or the unborn child? I saw a facetious headline. It went like this. Due to a change in the political climate, biologists are predicting a decline in male pregnancies. You can see how things have become so politicized, even in science. And such politicizing really clouds and covers the way people think. That's why we need the Word of God to root our thinking, to have us be clear and sound in the way we reason. And that's what we're trying to do here with the Sophie Scholl Monologue. Well, unlike Tony Kornheiser of Pardon the Interruption, I cannot promise you that I'll do better the next time. And unlike Tony, I will not fly his beloved Canadian flag. I'll just keep flying the flag of sackcloth for humility.